We have two massive entities that are currently taking control of the crypto market, Coinbase and Binance. In today's video, we'll be talking about exactly this, going over the most recent Bitcoin price action, and we'll also be talking about Tom Lee's ridiculous Ethereum prediction. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. First and foremost, taking a look at Bitcoin, you can see that it's quite obvious we're getting rejected at one key level. And what is that key level that we've been talking about? The yearly open. You can see that we managed to wick above it on the daily time frame. Let's go on the 4-hour time frame to paint a clear picture. We've been wicking and wicking above it. Ultimately, we got rejected. Right now, Bitcoin is sitting just below $91,000. This is still consolidation, but we have seen time and time again that we can get these reversals from these regions. And because of that, I actually entered my next big trade, which was shared in my premium group. That trade is actually an Ethereum short. And because of this, it's very important to be cautious in this market. In my previous video, we talked about the crucial $98,000 level. But before we can even touch on that level, we had to break above the yearly open. It's very clear we are now getting rejected from that level. However, we can see that the trend line is still intact. And so as long as we cannot hold above this trend line, the price action will likely continue to be to the downside. Now let's talk about the whales in this market. We have Coinbase and we have Binance. We know that most of the institutions are selling and buying through Coinbase Prime. So it makes sense to compare the Coinbase buying versus the Binance selling. Now, we talked about this at length on the channel over the past few videos. That is the Coinbase Premium. It is ultimately positive to see that from Coinbase's side of things, this is a positive premium. Therefore, there is more buying from the US. However, we cannot ignore the fact that Binance are continuing to sell. And so this causes some relatively choppy price action. At this point in time, you can see that the Coinbase Premium has stayed positive, which normally suggests that US participants have stepped back from the heavy selling that dragged that price down earlier, which we've been covering over the past few weeks. However, if the US isn't selling, who is it? Binance, of course. Binance whales have been unloading consistently. Look at this second chart over here. And it's not necessarily huge panic selling. However, it is definitely strong enough to cap the momentum every single time that Bitcoin is trying to move higher. On top of that, Binance's exchange whale ratio just hit its highest level since April 25th. Historically, when that spikes, it's usually because large holders are moving size onto the exchange with one intention: to sell. And so long as they keep on selling, it seems like they are currently outbidding the Coinbase Premium. Right now, Bitcoin is below $91,000, but I am still expecting some relatively choppy price action here. However, there is always the chance that we can come back down and retest this trend line if the Binance selling takes over. The reason why we were dumping so significantly over the past few weeks, aside from the historical views, is simply because we saw that both Coinbase and Binance were selling. Right now, Binance is selling a little bit more aggressively than Coinbase customers are buying. This is something you definitely need to consider. So, at this point in time, I would not be aggressive with any trades in this market. You know my trades. I've been sharing it with you time and time again on the channel. We entered along right around the lows, secured some very, very nice profits, but I'm willing to let the rest of this position get stopped out at break even. I already secured most of the gains from this trade. The reason I hold on to this trade, just to address some of your comments, is because what if I am wrong? What if Bitcoin does go ahead and reverse from here? Then I maintain my upside exposure, and this can turn into an even more profitable position. I am not married to my positions, and I'm happy that I took profits. It helps me sleep at night. Now, if you want to know exactly how I'm trading this market, whether I go long or short, you do have the first link in my description down below. This brings you to my free premium group. The only requirement is that you sign up with one of my affiliate exchange links and you start trading on there. DM me the keyword premium on Telegram and I'd be happy to onboard you into this group. Please also remember that I am not a financial advisor. I have a disclaimer in the description down below. I am just a guy on the internet sharing his trades and sharing his overall market insight. Now, taking a look at the liquidity, there is still significant liquidity to the upside. And so I don't think that these guys will get away scot-free. The thing is, we can easily move lower before we move higher. So you do need to consider that. Right now, I don't like that Bitcoin got rejected from the yearly open. This was a short trigger that I actually missed because in my experience, when we do consolidate right below a level like this, we tend to get some spikes to the upside. But you can see that we've now been capped out from that anchored VWAP and the yearly open. Let's see what the price action gives us. I am currently in a short, which was shared in my premium group right before I recorded this video. But the point is, as long as the Binance selling is higher than the Coinbase buying, we can easily move lower from here. Don't shoot the messenger. Now, I also want to take a look at Ethereum here because you can see that most of the Ethereum liquidity on the 1 week time frame is to the downside. And therefore, I do think that Ethereum could suffer a little bit more if Bitcoin is to drop from here. It's funny how things work because I previously spoke about how if Bitcoin can go ahead and move higher from here, Ethereum would likely start to outperform. However, I still think that Bitcoin dominance can go up, and because of this, I am actually expecting Bitcoin to outperform the rest of the market, more specifically if we are to get rejected from here, which does seem like the case right now. On a weekly time frame basis, remember the pivotal level that I also outlined, which is actually right where we're currently at, above $90,800. We want to break above here and hold it as support on the weekly time frame. Otherwise, we will immediately start talking about some lower price action here. Now, you want to know what trade I'm in? I entered an Ethereum short. Now, one of the reasons why I entered my short is because of this nonsense in the market. Tom Lee now owns more than 3% of the Ethereum total supply, and they're currently down $4 billion. Now, this isn't that much of an issue. He tried to copy what Saylor was doing with MicroStrategy in the sense of accumulating Ethereum instead of Bitcoin. However, he is down significantly, and you can see that he's starting to get a little bit nervous. His desperation is indeed showing. Let's hear what he had to say.
Well, what does that mean for Ethereum's price? Well, I think Bitcoin's going to get to 250,000 within a few months. And if Ethereum price ratio to Bitcoin gets back to its 8-year average, that's $12,000 for Ethereum. I mean, that's a huge move. If it gets to the 2021 highs, that's $22,000 for Ethereum. But I think Ethereum is going to become the future of finance, the payment rails of the future. And if it gets to 0.25 relative to Bitcoin, that's 62,000. So I think Ethereum at 3,000, of course, is grossly undervalued.
Okay, we have to have a serious discussion about this. Who gave this guy a platform? Seriously, how can you talk about Ethereum being at $62,000? Now, in the crypto industry, we've come to see different crypto influencers give these ridiculous price targets. But this guy has billions to buy Ethereum, and I know he wants to pump his own bags, but seriously, $62,000 ETH in a matter of months? Guys, come on. Maybe in the future, and look, I do firmly believe that Ethereum does have a place in the future, and I will be stacking heavy near the bear market lows, but come on, in the next few months, with Bitcoin above $250,000, look, if we make it to those levels in 2026 and the cycle is indeed broken, I'll be more than happy because I still have a lot of my Bitcoin stack. But the point is, you should not be blindly listening to these people, especially if you're trying to take this and implement it as trading advice. And on top of this, we also have the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, who says that Ethereum will hit $60,000 by 2026. Then this influencer, I feel like this is too low. Seriously, do people actually believe this? Anyways, let me give you an update on my Ethereum short. So if we scroll down here, you can see that I entered literally right before I posted this video, right around $3,140, and the market price is currently sitting at around $3,112. Now, I have a pretty tight stop loss, which I shared in my community. I have yet to implement it. I'll likely just close it manually. But the point is, I do think that Bitcoin can go ahead and move lower. Just sharing with you my trades. Now, some of you might be confused. Why do I have a Bitcoin long and an Ethereum short? The thing is, with this Bitcoin long, I entered at much, much lower levels. Remember, this was also shared in my community. It doesn't matter if the market is going up or down. I am actively trading this market, and I'm only looking for the best possible opportunities. So, what I'd like to show you here on top of this is the fact that the social risk is still at absolute lows. This is why these whale games that I discussed are more significant than ever, because retail is nowhere to be found. But remember what I said, if you're still tuning into crypto at this point in time, you will make it. There are opportunities in any market, and in the bear market, that's when you really want to accumulate your spot cryptocurrencies. Now, I also wanted to quickly touch on the fact that QE isn't the next stop. Huge shout out to Nick Crypto from Coin Bureau, but the point is, and I completely agree with this point, the sequence is end of quantitative tightening to rate cuts to rule tweaks to crisis to QE. If you're banking on quantitative easing, in other words, money printing, you're essentially positioning yourself for the drawdown that it forces. We're only at the first step now. We literally just ended quantitative tightening. Real QE doesn't arrive during routine pullbacks. It arrives when something in the system breaks. History makes it very clear. November 2008, QE number 1, Lehman collapse, credit markets froze. November 2010, QE number 2, deflation risk, 9% unemployment. September of 2012, recovery was too weak to stand alone. And then we have March of 2020, COVID shut down the global economy. These are the instances where we got QE, and naturally, it did cause a collapse before we could implement quantitative easing. Please consider this. Everyone that's jumping on the timeline and saying, hey, we are absolutely going to skyrocket from here simply because quantitative tightening ends and then we're going to go into quantitative easing immediately is full of crap. Please remember that and play your cards well. So, am I bullish? Am I bearish? Because in some of my previous videos, I talked about how we want to see Bitcoin tag $98,000 to make the next big move in this market. Look, my most recent trade here outside of the Bitcoin long, the short that I just took, is a relatively small position compared to my total trading portfolio. But what I want to get at here is I think Bitcoin likely shakes out a lot of market participants. We have liquidity to the upside. We have liquidity to the downside. I do think that at some point we will find our way back above this crucial level, $98,000 that is, and then we'll have to see the reaction from there. But for now, we have to pay attention to where Bitcoin currently is at, and that is right below the yearly open. Until we can reclaim this level as support, we have no chance of moving higher. And honestly, that's all I wanted to discuss in today's video. That sums it up ahead of the weekend. Bitcoin is seeing a little bit of drawdown here as we did get rejected from the yearly open. We did not manage to close above there as support, and therefore will likely have to wait for that $98,000 level that I've been discussing. At this point in time, if you are trading this market, I would highly recommend that you aren't too aggressive. As whales continue to play their games, we'll have to see how the price action of Bitcoin develops. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. If you want to know how I leverage trade the market, I have my Bluffin leverage trading tutorial right here, and I'll see you in the next video.